Refer you to this channel, William Collier, I think. How one man installed wjlx, a weak connection. So let me play this video here and put my commentary in. But now, I am by no means a radio station engineer or got a license in any of this. I just watch YouTube videos about ham radio, amateur radio, FCC stuff, all that. And there's things I just don't care about. If you get yourself a ham radio like a Baofeng, key it up and enjoy it. I don't give a shit if you don't have a license or not. It doesn't bother me one bit. You know, just be careful with it. That's all I gotta say.
A group of thieves in Alabama managed to steal and...
So this AM transmitter site right here is obviously, but they have an antenna right there, so I don't know. That's kind of weird why that's being shown. If it's been stolen, right?
AM radio tower.
Sound of Walker. WJBE. I wonder who that is.
I've been in the radio business around it all my life. And
screw you scumbag. You POS.
I've never heard of anything like this. And this one, I've seen it all now.
He's the one trying to scam money by using GoFundMe. Guess that's the one doing the video here.
It's Friday, February the 2nd. A bush hogging crew is going out to an AM station's tower.
A landscaping crew is what he means.
Clear the grounds from all the overgrown vegetation that's there. They roll up to the AM tower station and they notice something pretty peculiar. The tower's gone. The bush hogging crew call the owner of wjlx, Brett Elmore, and say, "Hey man, the tower's gone."
But yeah, like, it just said that he was general manager. So
are you sure you're at the right spot?
Yeah.
The guy says, "Yeah, I'm sure I'm at the right spot." And so Brett goes out there to check it out himself. He gets out there and finds out the tower's gone. They were right. They were at the right spot. Somebody had stolen the tower. Not only had they stolen the tower, but they had stolen all of the equipment that was inside of the building next to the tower. Just cleaned them out overnight, seemingly. Brett called the police, filed a report with them, and started talking to journalists. Brett started a GoFundMe to raise $60,000 so that they can rebuild the AM tower.
That needs to be reported and taken down.
They contacted the media and they wrote a story, and their story is basically just, "Damn, that's crazy. Somebody stole a 200-foot radio tower." Because that is crazy. I heard that story from somebody at work. Somebody mentioned it. It's this happened in Jasper, Alabama, and we all know Jasper, Alabama to be home of a lot of meth heads.
Yep.
And so we all just kind of
crackheads, meth heads.
Damn, these are some
fucking
highly
notifications.
How did they steal a 200-foot tower? That is an accomplishment. You know, we talked about it for a minute or two, and then I didn't think about it anymore. Then 2 days ago, on Friday the 9th, I was watching YouTube, and a video popped up in my subscription box from Gearling Engineering about the tower theft. And in that video, him and his dad, Jeff Gearling and his dad, talk about the theft. His dad has been in the radio business for a very long time.
Yep.
And this is something that has never happened before, a radio tower being stolen. People have had their equipment stolen and stuff like that, but never the actual tower. This would be like a first in history. They were talking about how crazy the theft was of a tower, and then we're also talking about how in radio forums, a bunch of radio heads were talking about how crazy it was. But not really how crazy the theft was, but how crazy the story was. And how they didn't really understand how a tower could be stolen in one night, presumably by some junkies. Stealing a radio tower is a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
It's super big. It's heavy. It's held up by these things called guy wires. So you gotta cut these guy wires, knock the tower over, chop it up, haul it away, Before you do any of that, you got to disconnect it from the amplifiers that are whatever they're called.
The
they're
transmitters.
putting high voltage into the tower because AM towers are the antenna. And so they were talking about how crazy this was. The forums were talking about how it doesn't really seem plausible. The forums were talking about how it's crazy that nobody from the station noticed, that it had happened and that it took landscapers to find it or a bush hogging crew to find it. And that night, it got the gears turning for me. I mentioned it to my friend, Gavin. We talked about it. And because we live in Birmingham, we're only like 45 minutes from Jasper.
I think I've been to Birmingham, or no, it's
we should
Tuscaloosa.
go on site and see what happened. If it was stolen, we should find like a fence smashed in.
Yeah,
because
the grass all messed up.
Regulation requires that there's a fence around the antenna.
Tire tracks.
We should find like gash marks in the ground, or like
Yep.
the dirt is like turned up from the tower falling.
Yep.
And maybe we'll find out how they took the tower down. Did they use a saw? Did they use a torch? We were just curious, looking for evidence. So Friday night, we decided that the next morning, Saturday, we were going to go out and go to the site and take videos. My plan with the videos was just to post them to the forums and let people, see what the site looked like.
And make a
For the
decision.
second time, I've done a voiceover and cut down the footage of us here on site. But if you want to see
There
this
is tire
footage in
tracks,
its
though.
entirety, I've also posted this on my channel. It's the full video of all of the time that we were there. No edits, no cuts. So we get there,
There's
and
tire tracks, though.
we immediately notice these mud tracks while we're walking up to the site. And then we notice the fence that is supposed to be around the antenna and how it is down over there and has a bunch of vegetation growing through it. The door was like that when we got there. I mean, this footage is us walking up for the first time. I started recording as soon as we started walking up. You can see the inside right here is very dusty. The floor looks like it has been covered in, just general dust. Looks like the door's been open for a while. The inside's pretty filthy. Right here, I'm talking to Gavin and to the camera and trying to explain. It doesn't really make much sense that the door would be left like that. If they thought that the place was burglarized, surely they would have gone inside to see what equipment or things were affected by the theft.
Yep.
If they did go inside, they would have had to have moved the door.
Yep.
If they did move the door, they probably wouldn't put it like it is in the shot. Right here, this is footage from later, right before we left, after we had already walked around, but I hadn't really poked my head into the building. And it dawned on me that
The
all this
shack,
vegetation in
not a
front
building,
of
the
the
shack.
door would probably be all squished down and flattened by whoever was stealing the equipment that was inside. And right here, I'm showing the guy wire. This is the cable that is supposed to hold the antenna upright.
Well,
I'm
there's
trying
probably
to
more
show
than that, but
the state of it doesn't really come across on camera, but it looks very bad. I'm no guy wire expert, but I know those things are pretty important to keeping up the tower, and this one looks in pretty rough shape. This other wire right here is kind of the same story. It is under a bunch of vegetation. If the wire was cut down a week ago, it wouldn't really make sense that all of this stuff has grown over it, because all this stuff didn't grow in a week, right? Most of it's dead, so it hasn't been growing or doing anything for a while. And then on the other end of this guy wire, you can see that it's through the fence. So I show it on this one side, but then I walk around the fence and I show it on the other. What I was trying to show on camera is that you can see that the guy wire goes underneath this stick and through the fence, and it would be really hard for that to happen on accident. I don't think if somebody was stealing the tower, they would have put the cable through the fence in that really particular way. Also, why is the fence like this, and why does the fence have all this vegetation growing through it? If the fence was up a week ago, like it was supposed to be, to protect any people from walking up to the antenna and touching it and getting injured or something like that,
getting electrocuted, yeah.
how did all this vegetation get grown through it? Right here, I wanted to visualize what 200 feet would look like. Before we came, we went to Harbor Freight and bought this measuring wheel because I was hoping to find dirt turned up or big gashes in the ground, evidence that the tower had been knocked over. I wanted to know how far away from the base that was, stuff like that. So we bought this measuring wheel so that we could get rough ideas. So right here, I wanted to visualize what 200 feet would look like because I've never measured 200 feet, and so I have no idea in my head how far that is. It's not the most accurate thing ever, but to illustrate the point that 200 feet is huge, and it would be seemingly impossible for several people to do this in one night unnoticed, I think it works. Right here, you can barely see Gavin. You get the point. It's super far away. So I go back over to Gavin, and then I notice that what looks like the meter on the side of the building is cut. It looks like the inside of the meter has been exposed for a while right there. I also noticed that the wires inside of the building for the light switch were cut. That also didn't look to be very fresh. I didn't actually go inside the building. I just poked the camera inside. After that, we kind of came to the conclusion that it doesn't look like the tower was taken last week. You can see right here inside all this stuff. You can see little cobwebs in the corner. You can see the paint or vinyl on the wall was kind of coming off. It's obvious that the inside of the building was exposed to the elements for a long time. At this point, we had collected enough evidence to be sure that the tower was not stolen a week ago.
We went over to the station to see if anyone was there that we could talk to, even though we weren't hopeful anyone would be there, since the FCC denied their request to continue broadcasting on FM, since they're only licensed for AM. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We're entering the speculation zone. I'm going to speculate on motives and give my reasons for thinking this, but it's just my opinion. I of course think I'm onto something, but at the same time, I could be wrong. Again, after this video is over, please check the pinned comment for any corrections. I think that the tower has been down for some time. I think the tower either fell down or was taken down to reduce liability. I don't think that happened a week ago. Let me give you my thought process. Let's start with some backstory so that we can get the whole picture. wjlx is an AM station that also does FM translation. FM translation is a rebroadcast of AM stations so that they can be picked up by FM radios. wjlx is not licensed to do FM-only broadcast. The only reason that they are able to do FM broadcasts is because of FM translation. In order to do FM translation, they're required to be broadcasting on AM. If the AM broadcast stops, the FM broadcast is also supposed to stop. wjlx primarily brands itself as an FM station. If you look at their Facebook or their website, or you go to the station in person, it all says WJLX 101.5 FM. This branding leads me to think that FM and their internet broadcast are their primary moneymakers.
Yeah.
I think that the only reason they're still doing AM is because they're required to in order to broadcast on FM. Because of this, I think that the AM tower maintenance was not prioritized. Brett said in his GoFundMe that the AM tower was uninsured, and that's the reason they needed to do the GoFundMe. I think that's insane. I think that it is a super unwise business decision to uninsure your most valuable asset, which is...
I think it's required, actually.
It's the only thing that allows them to be broadcasting in the first place. Because without the AM tower broadcasting, they are not supposed to be broadcasting on FM. I think it might not have been financially viable for them to have insurance on the tower or keep up with maintenance on the tower, because in February of 2021, they were fined $1,500 by the FCC for failing to timely file a license renewal application for the station. They didn't pay this fine, as evident by the document stating that on March 11, 2021, the licensee submitted a written response in which it did not dispute that it had violated the rules, but requested that the fine was canceled due to their inability to pay, noting that the station had constantly operated at a loss. Why am I making this video? I feel like the truth was not presented from the beginning. The problem with that, for me, is that the current optics of the story are, oh, look at this poor radio station that had their AM tower stolen. Please go donate. They've been a victim of a crime. They're a victim. They need help. I feel
They're
like
fucking liars.
the media with the lie of the tower was stolen
Yep.
in an effort to get the sympathy donations. I think that if he had come out and asked for donations back when the tower needed maintenance, there's a chance that people would rally behind him and give him those donations.
Yep.
Unless those people are only donating now because they believe that WJLX is a victim. If this was any other business that was failing because something substantial had changed, radio stations would have been out of business a long time ago. Think about Blockbuster. They were doing great along with all the other movie rental businesses at the time, but then came along Netflix. Netflix was doing physical media when they first started, except for they were mailing it to the customers rather than having an in-store experience. Then Netflix transitioned to doing digital streaming.
Yep.
Blockbuster saw the changes that Netflix was making to streaming rather than physical media and decided not to transition because they thought that they still had a viable business. Because of that, Blockbuster failed. They tried to transition to streaming, but it was way too late and Netflix had gained way too much market share. Nobody feels bad for Blockbuster. They did it to themselves. They saw the new things that were on the horizon and never changed anything. I feel like radio's in a similar situation right now. They've had the same business model since the dawn of radio, which is to sell ads. They have transitioned to streaming, but aren't able to keep up with on-demand media services and targeted ad platforms. The only reason that they're still around is because of CPB funding. CPB is the steward of the federal government's investment in public broadcasting and the largest single source of funding for public radio, television, and related online and mobile services. If this funding was cut, thousands of public radio, including WJLX, would cease to exist. I feel like because WJLX receives this public funding, they have a responsibility to do things the right way so that they can stay operational and also be truthful to the public.
Yep.
I hope that WJLX finds a way to keep going. I'm going to include a link to their GoFundMe in the description. Don't go donate because you feel like they're a victim of theft. I think it's pretty clear that they are not. Go and donate because you care about access to public radio. A lot of people in Walker County still listen to public radio, and it's super important that they have access to it. Last thing, if you made it this far, thanks. This is obviously not my normal thing. I don't plan on doing this, like, ever. Again, I don't know.
Falling asleep here.
If you want to leave a like on this video, I'd appreciate that, but I honestly don't care. Feel free to subscribe, but again, I'll probably never post anything ever again unless there was a major reason to update this story, or there was something major that I got wrong in this story and needed to update it. Other than that, thanks for your time, and have a good one.
So that being said, I'm glad he exposed the truth about the scam that the WJLX is trying to pull.
We had a 6-hour layover in Rome, which was just enough time to tour the ruins. If we skipped the line.